soft glow of crystal chandeliers reflected off polished silverware as Lily tucked a strand of dark hair behind her ear. She balanced 3 plates along her arm with the skill that came from years of practice. The Ivory Room wasn't just any restaurant. It was where the wealthy came to be seen, where business deals worth millions were sealed over glasses of wine that cost more than Lily's weekly rent. "Table 12 needs more water," called out Ray from behind the bar. He gave Lily a sympathetic look as she hurried past. They both knew Table 12 had been nothing but trouble since they'd arrived an hour ago. Lily nodded and continued to her current table, setting down plates of food that looked more like artwork than dinner. "Seared scallops with truffle foam," she announced with a practiced smile, "and the duck confit with cherry reduction. Can I get you anything else?" The couple barely looked up as they murmured their thanks. Lily stepped back, her eyes drifting as they often did to the grand piano that stood in the corner of the dining room. The black lacquered surface gleamed under the lights, currently silent and waiting for the weekend pianist to arrive. Something in her expression changed when she looked at the piano, a small flicker of emotion that vanished as quickly as it appeared. None of the other servers noticed. To them, Lily was just the quiet girl who picked up extra shifts and never complained. The one who would cover for you in a heartbeat but somehow always slipped away when the staff went out for drinks after closing. "Lily! Water pitcher, table 12. Ray called again, jerking her attention back to the present. She moved quickly through the restaurant, weaving between tables with grace. The Ivory Room had been especially busy lately, ever since that food blogger had given them a rave review. Good for business, tough on the staff who were already stretched thin. Approaching table 12, Lily took a deep breath. The 4 men in expensive suits had been demanding since they'd arrived, sending back drinks that were perfectly made and complaining about the temperature of the room. "More water, gentlemen?" she asked, reaching for the half-empty glasses. The man at the head of the table looked up. He had sharp eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. His watch alone probably cost more than Lily's car. "You're fast," he said, studying her face. "Better service than my last visit?" "Thank you, sir," Lily replied, keeping her voice neutral as she refilled the water glasses. "Jack Chen," he said suddenly. "And these are my associates," Lily nodded politely. Everyone in the city knew Jack Chen, the tech genius who'd made his first million before turning 25 and hadn't stopped since. His company developed some kind of software that had revolutionized online security, and now he owned half the high-rises downtown. He was also known for being unpredictable and demanding. "Can I get you anything else?" she asked. "Your name?" Chen said, leaning back in his chair. "Lily?" she answered, keeping her professional smile in place. "Just Lily? Like Madonna or Cher?" One of his associates laughed too loudly at this. "Lily Porter," she clarified, wishing the floor would open up and swallow her. She hated being the center of attention. Chen nodded as if she'd confirmed something important. "Tom here says the lamb is excellent. What do you recommend?" "The lamb is very popular," Lily agreed. "Personally, I think the sea bass is special tonight. Chef uses this ginger lime sauce that's not too heavy." Chen studied her for a moment longer than comfortable, then nodded. "Sea bass for me." And another round of drinks. He gestured to his companions, who quickly placed their orders. As Lily walked away, she could feel Chen's eyes following her. Something about him made her uneasy, but she couldn't afford to lose this job. Tips from one night at the Ivory Room equaled almost 3 shifts at the diner where she used to work. Back at the service station, Lily entered the table's orders into the computer system. Her coworker Tina slid up beside her. "So you've got the Chen table," Tina whispered, her eyes wide. "Did he really tip a server $1,000 last month?" Lily shrugged. "I don't know. He seems..." She searched for the right word. "Intense." "Well, he asked for you specifically," Tina said, grabbing a tray of appetizers. "Mike was supposed to take that section tonight. He asked for me." Lily frowned. "I've never served him before. Guess your reputation precedes you." Tina winked. "Don't look so worried. Maybe he'll give you a big tip too." As the evening progressed, Lily found herself making more and more trips to table 12. Chen would request another bottle of wine just as she was about to check on another table, or he'd send back a perfectly cooked steak claiming it was overdone. His associates followed his lead, becoming increasingly loud as the night wore on. During one of her rare moments of downtime, Lily found herself near the piano again. The weekend pianist had called in sick, so the beautiful instrument sat unused. She reached out, her fingers hovering just above the keys without touching them. "You play?" Lily startled, pulling her hand back as if burned. Mr. Whitaker, the restaurant owner, stood watching her with curious eyes. "No," she said quickly. It's a beautiful piano." Whitaker nodded. "Steinway. Cost more than my first house," he gave her a kind smile. "Feel free to admire it, but maybe get back to your tables before Chen snaps his fingers again. He's been very demanding tonight." Lily hurried back to the dining area where Chen's table had grown rowdier. The men were on their third bottle of expensive wine, their voices carrying across the otherwise subdued restaurant. Other diners were beginning to throw annoyed glances in their direction. "There she is," Chen announced as Lily approached. "Lily Porter, the fastest server in the West." His associates chuckled as if he'd said something incredibly clever. Lily began clearing their plates, keeping her expression neutral. "Will there be anything else?" she asked, hoping the answer would be no. Her shift was supposed to end in 20 minutes. Chen leaned forward, that intense look back in his eyes. "Tell me, Lily Porter, what's your story, sir?" "Nobody works this hard without a reason," Chen said. "School loans? Sick relative? What drives someone to be the best server in a place like this?" The other men at the table were watching her now, their expressions a mixture of curiosity and amusement. Lily felt her cheeks grow warm. "I just need the money like everyone else," she said quietly. Chen didn't look convinced. "Well, we'll need dessert menus. And coffee." As the night wore on, the restaurant gradually emptied until Chen's table was one of the last remaining. Lily's feet ached, and she'd long ago passed the end of her scheduled shift. But Mr. Whitaker had made it clear, Jack Chen and his associates were to be given whatever they wanted, for as long as they wanted to stay. While waiting for their desserts to be prepared, Lily found herself once again near the piano. The restaurant had quieted, with only the soft murmur of conversations and the occasional clink of silverware against plates. Her fingers twitched at her sides. It had been so long. "You keep looking at it." Lily jumped at Chen's voice right behind her. She hadn't heard him approach. "The piano," he continued, studying her face with those sharp eyes. "You've glanced at it 27 times tonight." "I counted." Lily stepped back, creating distance between them. "I should check on your desserts." "They're not ready yet," Chen said, waving his hand dismissively. "So what is it about this piano that keeps catching your eye?" Before Lily could answer, one of the kitchen doors swung open and a server emerged with a tray of elaborate desserts. Saved by chocolate soufflé, Lily thought with relief. "Your desserts are ready," she said, moving toward the kitchen. Chen caught her wrist, his grip surprisingly gentle. "I wasn't finished." Something in his tone made Lily meet his eyes. There was curiosity there, but something else too, a challenge. "When you're done serving dessert," he said quietly, "I want you to play something." Lily felt the blood drain from her face. I can't, or won't." Chen released her wrist. "I'm very good at reading people, Lily Porter. And you—" He glanced at the piano, then back at her. "You have the hands of someone who plays. With that." He returned to his table, leaving Lily standing frozen next to the silent piano, her heart hammering against her ribs as memories she'd tried so hard to bury came rushing back. "Orders up, Lily," called the kitchen staff, snapping her back to reality. She served the desserts with trembling hands, avoiding Chen's gaze as much as possible. The minutes ticked by, and with each one, Lily grew more anxious. When the men finally finished their coffee and asked for the check, she nearly cried with relief. Chen paid with a black credit card, not even glancing at the total. As Lily returned with the receipt for him to sign, he looked up at her with that same challenging expression. "It's been an interesting evening, Lily Porter," he said, signing the receipt with a flourish. "I'll be back next week. Same table." As the men prepared to leave, Lily began clearing their table, thinking she'd escaped whatever game Chen had been playing. But as the tech millionaire shrugged into his expensive coat, he paused beside her. "Next time," he said softly so only she could hear, "you're going to play that piano, one way or another." Then he was gone, leaving Lily clutching a stack of dirty plates, staring after him with a mixture of dread and something else, something she hadn't felt in a very long time. That night, as Lily rode the bus back to her small apartment on the outskirts of town, she couldn't stop thinking about the piano. About the threat, or was it a promise, that Chen had made. about the past she'd been running from for years, and for the first time since she'd walked away from Westridge Music Conservatory and the future she'd once dreamed of. Lily Porter allowed herself to remember what it felt like to play. A week passed, and Lily found herself checking the reservation list every day. No sign of Jack Chen. Maybe he'd forgotten about her, about the piano, about his strange demand. Maybe she was safe. But on Friday evening, as Lily tied her black apron around her waist, Ray poked his head into the break room. "Heads up," he said, his expression sympathetic. "Your friend is back." Table 12 again. Lily's stomach dropped. "He's not my friend," Ray shrugged. "Well, he asked for you specifically." Mr. Whitaker's thrilled. Apparently Chen left a $500 tip last time. For a brief, wild moment, Lily considered calling in sick, walking out, quitting on the spot. But rent was due next week, and her roommate Beth had already covered for her twice in the past few months. "You okay?" Ray asked, noticing her expression. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "I'm fine," Lily said, smoothing down her shirt with trembling hands. "Just tired." When she finally gathered the courage to approach table 12, she found not just Chen but a larger group, 7 people in total, all dressed in business attire that screamed money and influence. Chen sat at the head of the table, somehow looking even more imposing than before. "Ah, Lily Porter," he said, a smile spreading across his face. "I was telling my colleagues about the excellent service here." Lily forced herself to smile. "Welcome back, Mr. Chen. Can I get you and your party some drinks to start?" The evening crawled by in a haze of anxiety. With each trip to and from the kitchen, Lily felt Chen watching her. Whenever she glanced at the piano, and she tried hard not to, she could feel his eyes tracking the movement. "He keeps looking at you," Tina whispered, as they stood at the service station. "Like intensely. What's the story there?" "There's no story," Lily insisted, arranging dessert spoons on a tray. "Sure doesn't seem like nothing," Tina said with a knowing smile. "Just be careful. I've heard he can be difficult." By 9 o'clock the restaurant was packed. The weekend pianist, a gray-haired man named Gerald, had arrived and was playing soft classical music that floated through the dining room. Lily felt herself relax slightly. If Gerald was playing, Chen couldn't possibly expect her to. But as she delivered a round of after-dinner drinks to table 12, Chen gestured to the pianist. "He's quite good," Chen said conversationally. "Do you enjoy classical music, Lily?" The question seemed innocent enough, but Lily knew better. "I don't know much about it," she lied. One of the women at the table, a sharp-featured executive type with perfectly styled blonde hair, laughed. "Jack, stop torturing the poor girl and tell us what this is about. You've been watching her all night." Chen smiled, not taking his eyes off Lily. "Just making conversation, Diane." To Lily, he added, "We're celebrating a rather significant business deal tonight. Perhaps you could tell Gerald to take a short break? I'd like to make a toast without having to shout over the music." Lily nodded, grateful for the excuse to escape the table. She approached Gerald, who nodded amiably when she explained the request. "No problem at all," he said, closing his sheet music. "I could use a coffee break anyway." As Gerald disappeared toward the kitchen, Lily felt a creeping sense of dread. She looked back at table 12 to find Chen already on his feet, glass raised. "Friends and colleagues," he announced, his voice carrying through the restaurant. Other diners looked up, some recognizing the famous tech entrepreneur. "Today marks a turning point for our company. The Miller acquisition puts us years ahead of our competition." Chen's associates raised their glasses, smiling and nodding. "But," he continued, "every success deserves a proper celebration. And what better way to celebrate than with some music?" Lily froze in the act of refilling water glasses at a nearby table. Chen's eyes found her across the room. "I've learned something interesting about the Ivory Room. They hire only the most talented staff, talented in ways you wouldn't expect." Mr. Whitaker had appeared from his office, hovering near the bar with a pleased expression. Clearly he thought Chen was about to compliment the restaurant. "Our server tonight, Lily Porter," Chen continued, gesturing toward her, "has been hiding something from us." All eyes in the restaurant turned to Lily. She felt the weight of their stares like a physical thing pressing down on her shoulders. The water pitcher trembled in her hand. "Mr. Chen," she said quietly, approaching his table. "Please don't what?" he asked innocently, though his eyes held that same challenging look. Don't share with everyone that you're not just an excellent server? Lily glanced desperately toward Mr. Whitaker, hoping for some intervention, but the owner was watching with obvious curiosity. I have tables to serve, Lily tried, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm sure they can wait, Chen said, then turned back to the room at large. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to request a special performance. Our server, Lily Porter, is going to play the piano for us. The restaurant fell quiet. Lily could hear the blood rushing in her ears, feel the familiar tightness in her chest that always preceded a panic attack. This couldn't be happening. Not again. Not here. I don't play, she insisted, though the lie felt hollow on her lips. Chen's smile never wavered. I think you do. In fact, I'm certain of it. Mr. Whitaker approached, his expression caught between confusion and excitement. Lily, you never mentioned you played. I don't, she repeated more firmly this time. Mr. Chen is mistaken. Chen set down his glass and reached into his jacket pocket, pulling out his phone. After a moment of scrolling, he turned the screen toward Mr. Whitaker. Lily Porter, he read aloud, winner of the Regional Young Musicians Competition 5 years ago. Full scholarship to Westridge Music Conservatory. He looked up, meeting Lily's horrified gaze. There's quite a lovely video of your performance attached to this article. Lily felt the room spinning around her. How had he found that? She'd been so careful, changing her appearance, keeping a low profile, staying off social media. You researched me? She managed to say, anger momentarily overriding her fear. Chen shrugged unapologetically. I was curious. You're not the typical server, Lily Porter. Your attention to detail. Your way of moving through this room like you're counting beats in your head. Those are the habits of someone with musical training. The blonde woman, Diane, was looking uncomfortable now. Jack, maybe this isn't appropriate. Nonsense, Chen interrupted. I'm offering her an opportunity. One song, Lily. Show everyone what you can really do. Mr. Whitaker was looking at her with new eyes. Westridge Conservatory? Lily, that's one of the top music schools in the country. I dropped out, she said flatly. I don't play anymore. Why not? Chen pressed. The question hung in the air between them. Lily became aware that the entire restaurant was watching this exchange, waiting for her response. Servers had stopped mid-task. Diners held forks suspended above their plates. Because I can't, she finally said, the words catching in her throat. Chen's expression softened slightly. Can't? Or won't? Both. Lily set down the water pitcher before she dropped it. I haven't touched a piano in 3 years. Like riding a bike, Chen said confidently. You never really forget. This isn't funny, Lily said, her voice growing stronger as anger replaced embarrassment. You had no right to look into my personal life. Perhaps not, Chen conceded. But now that we're here, why not embrace the moment, one song? That's all I'm asking. I could lose my job, Lily tried, looking to Mr. Whitaker for support. But the owner was already shaking his head. You certainly won't lose your job for playing the piano, Lily. In fact, I'm rather intrigued now. Trapped. She was trapped in her worst nightmare with no way out. Diane spoke up again. Jack, the girl clearly doesn't want to perform. Let's drop it and enjoy our evening. For a moment, Lily thought Chen might listen to his colleague, but then he leaned forward, lowering his voice so only she could hear. 3 years is a long time to run from your talent, he said. Whatever happened at Westridge, and I couldn't find those details, it's in the past. Maybe it's time to face it. Lily stared at him, trying to understand his angle. Why do you care? Let's call it a personal interest in untapped potential, Chen replied. Then more loudly, one song, Lily. And if it's terrible, I'll double your tip and never mention it again. A few nervous laughs rippled through the restaurant. The tension in the room was palpable. Mr. Whitaker placed a gentle hand on Lily's shoulder. It's your choice, he said kindly. But I'll admit I'm curious now. Lily looked around the restaurant, at Chen's expectant face, at her co-workers' surprised expressions, at the other diners watching with interest. She thought about running, about walking straight out the door and never coming back. She thought about the panic, the shame, the terrible day that had made her lock away this part of herself. And then, almost against her will, she looked at the piano. The beautiful Steinway sat in the soft spotlight, its lid raised, keys exposed like an open invitation, or a challenge. In that moment, something shifted inside her, a tiny spark of something she hadn't felt in years, not quite courage, something more like defiance. Fine, she said quietly. One song. She walked toward the piano on legs that felt disconnected from her body. The restaurant remained silent, all eyes following her progress. As she sat on the bench, memories flooded back. Hours of practice. The weight of expectations. The joy that had once filled her when her fingers touched the keys. Before she could change her mind, Lily placed her hands on the keyboard and froze. The familiar panic rose in her chest, squeezing her lungs. Her fingers remained motionless above the keys as sweat beaded on her forehead. She couldn't breathe, couldn't move, couldn't do this. She was about to stand to flee when a soft voice spoke beside her. "Just close your eyes," said Diane, who had silently approached the piano. "Pretend you're alone." Lily looked up at the woman, surprised to see genuine kindness in her expression. "Whatever you're afraid of," Diane continued quietly. "It's not here tonight." Lily took a deep, shuddering breath. Then she closed her eyes and played. The first notes were tentative, barely audible in the hushed restaurant. Lily's fingers moved stiffly across the keys, playing a simple melody she'd learned as a child. Muscle memory took over as she kept her eyes closed, trying to block out the watching crowd. But then something unexpected happened. As the simple tune filled the air, Lily felt a door unlock inside her, one she'd kept firmly shut for 3 long years. Her fingers remembered what her mind had tried to forget. Almost without conscious thought, the simple melody transformed. Her left hand began to add depth, creating rich harmonies beneath the right hand's increasingly complex patterns. The music swelled, no longer a child's practice piece, but something profound and moving. Throughout the restaurant, conversation stopped mid-sentence. Forks paused on their way to mouths. Servers stood motionless, trays balanced in their hands. Mr. Whitaker leaned against the bar, his expression one of complete astonishment. Ray and Tina exchanged wide-eyed glances from their stations. And at table 12, Jack Chen sat back with a small, satisfied smile playing at the corners of his mouth. Lily was no longer in the ivory room. In her mind, she was back in her childhood home, playing on the old upright piano her parents had scraped and saved to buy. She was in the practice rooms at Westridge, where she'd spent countless hours perfecting her technique. The music flowed through her like water breaking through a dam. Unstoppable, powerful, alive. She transitioned seamlessly into Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major, her body swaying slightly with the gentle rise and fall of the melody. Her fingers danced across the keys with a grace and precision that spoke of thousands of hours of practice. The piece was achingly beautiful, filled with longing and hope in equal measure. A patron at a nearby table discreetly wiped a tear from her cheek. An elderly man closed his eyes, transported by the music. Even the kitchen staff had emerged from the back, standing in the doorway to listen. As Lily reached the final delicate passages of the Nocturne, she opened her eyes. The sight of the restaurant, all those people watching her, threatened to break the spell. For a heartbeat, her fingers faltered. But then she caught sight of Diane standing near the piano, her expression one of genuine wonder. Beyond her, Jack Chen nodded encouragement. It wasn't the challenge she'd seen earlier in his eyes, but something different, something like recognition. Taking a deep breath, Lily shifted into Rachmaninoff's Prelude in G minor. Her hands stretched to reach the demanding chords, her body tensing with the effort as the piece built in intensity. This wasn't a gentle nocturne. This was fire and passion, showcasing not just technique but emotional depth. The restaurant remained completely silent except for the music pouring from the Steinway. Lily was vaguely aware of a man entering the restaurant, pausing by the host stand as he recognized the piece being played. He whispered something to the hostess, who pointed toward the piano. Lily didn't notice. She was fully immersed in the music now, her face reflecting every emotion in the complicated piece. Joy, pain, longing, triumph. They passed across her features like clouds across the sky. Her hands flew over the keys during the rapid passages, then became deliberate and powerful for the thunderous chords. As the final notes reverberated through the room, Lily sat perfectly still, her hands resting on the keys. For a moment, no one moved or spoke. The silence was complete. Then the restaurant erupted in applause. People rose to their feet, clapping enthusiastically. Someone whistled. A woman called "Bravo!" from the back of the room. Lily remained frozen at the piano, her cheeks flushing with color as the reality of what had just happened crashed over her. She had played in public, after swearing never to touch a piano again. Mr. Whitaker approached the piano first, his face split with an enormous grin. "Lily, that was incredible, absolutely incredible." "I'm sorry," she said automatically, beginning to stand. "I should get back to—" "You're not going anywhere," Mr. Whitaker said, gently pressing her shoulder to keep her seated. "Except perhaps to take a well-deserved bow." The applause continued as Lily awkwardly stood and gave a small curtsy. Her co-workers were staring at her as if they'd never seen her before. In a way, they hadn't. Not the real Lily. As the applause finally died down and guests reluctantly returned to their meals, Jack Chen approached the piano. Diane and a few of his other associates followed, their expressions ranging from impressed to stunned. "That," Chen said, "was worth every penny of our rather expensive dinner." Lily met his gaze steadily. "Are you satisfied now, Mr. Chen?" "Immensely," he replied. "Though I admit I expected you'd be good." "I didn't expect you'd be that good," Diane stepped forward. "It was beautiful. Truly beautiful." She glanced at Chen with a raised eyebrow. Though Jack's methods leave something to be desired, Chen shrugged, unrepentant. Results speak for themselves. Lily's hands were shaking now, the adrenaline of the performance wearing off. "Why?" she asked him directly. "Why did you do this?" Before Chen could answer, the man Lily had vaguely noticed entering during her performance approached the piano. He was in his 60s, with silver hair and a distinguished bearing. Something about him seemed familiar. "Excuse me," he said, his voice carrying the slight accent of Eastern Europe. "I couldn't help but overhear. That was Rachmaninoff's G minor prelude, yes? Beautifully played." Mr. Whitaker seemed to recognize the man. "Professor Novak?" What an unexpected pleasure. The name hit Lily like a physical blow. Professor Anton Novak, the head of the piano department at Westridge Conservatory. Her former teacher, Lily. Novak peered at her more closely. "Lily Porter? Is that really you?" Lily gripped the edge of the piano for support. "Hello, Professor." Novak's eyebrows shot up in surprise. "My God, it is you. I almost didn't recognize you with the different hair color." He glanced around, taking in her uniform, the restaurant. "What are you doing here?" "I work here," she said simply. "She waits tables," Chen added helpfully. "Quite well, in fact." Novak frowned, looking bewildered. "But you're playing." He turned to Mr. Whitaker. This young woman was one of the most promising talents to come through Westridge in a decade. Lily felt the familiar tightness returning to her chest. This was exactly what she'd been afraid of, the past catching up with her. "The questions, the expectations, Professor," she began. "I've been trying to locate you for months," Novak continued. "After you left so suddenly, we were all concerned." Chen was watching this exchange with obvious interest. "You two know each other?" "Professor Novak was my teacher at Westridge," Lily explained reluctantly. "Until she disappeared 3 years ago," Novak added. "Right before the Keller competition finals. We thought perhaps there had been an accident or—" Lily flinched at the mention of the competition. "There wasn't an accident. I just couldn't do it anymore." A look of understanding dawned on Novak's face. "The panic attacks? They got worse?" Lily nodded, avoiding everyone's eyes. She didn't want to see their pity. Or worse, their judgment. What competition? This came from Diane, who was following the conversation with obvious curiosity. "The Keller International Piano Competition," Novak explained. "Very prestigious. Lily had advanced to the finals, one of the youngest contestants to do so. The winner receives a substantial cash prize and, more importantly, a 3-year contract with the Philharmonic as a featured soloist. The weight of all those dreams, crushed by her own fear, pressed down on Lily. "I should really get back to work," she said, attempting to step away from the piano. "Your tables have been covered," Mr. Whitaker assured her. "Take a moment." Chen was studying her with new interest. "So you were on the verge of a promising career and then you walked away to wait tables?" The way he said it made it sound absurd. Maybe it was. "It's complicated," Lily said quietly. "Performance anxiety can be crippling," Novak said gently. "Even for the most talented musicians," Chen frowned. "But you just played brilliantly in front of a restaurant full of people." "It's different," Lily tried to explain. "When I'm playing for myself or even casually like this, I can manage. But the pressure of competition, of a formal recital where every note is being judged." She shook her head. "I can't handle it." I tried therapy, medication, everything. Nothing worked. So you gave up music entirely? Chen asked, his tone suggesting he found this solution extreme. It was easier that way, Lily said. A clean break. Professor Novak was watching her with sad eyes. Such a waste of extraordinary talent. His words stung, though Lily knew he didn't mean to be cruel. It was the same thing she'd told herself countless times over the past 3 years. There are other ways to use your gift, Novak continued. Teaching, perhaps. Or recording. Environments where the pressure isn't so immediate. Lily had considered these options before, but the thought of being surrounded by music, living in that world without being able to perform, had seemed like a special kind of torture. I'm happy with my life now, she lied. No one looked. Convinced. Well, Chen said, breaking the awkward silence. This evening has certainly taken an unexpected turn. He turned to Lily. I owe you an apology. I pushed you into something personal without understanding the full story. The apology surprised her. Then why did you do it? Chen considered the question. I recognize talent when I see it, and I hate to see it wasted. He glanced around the restaurant. No offense to the ivory room. None taken, Mr. Whitaker said dryly. Professor Novak cleared his throat. Lily, would you consider, that is, I'd like to talk with you, about possibilities. When you have time, Lily felt overwhelmed. An hour ago, she had been a waitress with a secret past. Now that past had crashed into her present with the force of a tidal wave. I need some air, she said suddenly. Excuse me. She hurried toward the back exit, pushing through the kitchen doors and out into the alley behind the restaurant. The cool night air hit her face as she leaned against the brick wall, taking deep breaths. What had just happened? And more importantly, what happened next? The alley behind the ivory room was quiet except for the distant sounds of traffic and the soft hum of the restaurant's air conditioning units. Lily leaned against the brick wall, her heart still racing. The night air was cool against her flushed skin as she tried to process everything that had just happened. She had played the piano again. Really played, not just plunking out notes, but pouring her soul into the music the way she once had. And Professor Novak, of all people, had witnessed it. The universe had a twisted sense of humor. The back door creaked open, spilling light into the alley. Lily tensed, expecting Mr. Whitaker or maybe even Chen coming to drag her back inside. Instead, it was Diane who stepped out, glancing around until she spotted Lily. Mind if I join you? She asked, not waiting for an answer before closing the door behind her. Lily shrugged, too emotionally drained to object. Diane walked over and leaned against the wall beside her, fishing a pack of cigarettes from her pocket. I don't normally smoke, she said, offering the pack to Lily, who shook her head. Just at the end of high-stress days. She lit one and took a drag, blowing the smoke away from Lily. I'd say this qualifies. They stood in silence for a moment before Diane spoke again. Jack can be a real jerk sometimes, she said matter-of-factly. Brilliant, but a jerk. He sees people as puzzles to solve. Is that what I am? A puzzle? Lily asked bitterly. You're certainly an interesting one. Diane studied her with shrewd eyes. A classical piano prodigy working as a waitress. It's not exactly a common story, Lily sighed. I'm not a prodigy. I just worked hard. False modesty doesn't suit you, Diane said. I might not be a music expert, but even I can tell what I heard in there was exceptional. Lily didn't respond. What could she say? That she'd spent her entire childhood and young adulthood dedicated to an art form she could no longer perform? That she'd thrown away a future most musicians would kill for, because she couldn't control her own fear? My daughter plays, Diane said after a moment. Piano, I mean. She's 13 and already talking about music schools. Good for her, Lily murmured. She'd be over the moon to get advice from someone like you, Diane continued. Someone who's been through the conservatory experience. Lily turned to look at her. Is this a job offer? Because if Chen sent you out here to... No job offer, Diane interrupted, holding up her hands. Jack doesn't even know I followed you. She paused, taking another drag from her cigarette. I recognize that look you had on your face when you played. My daughter gets the same one. Like nothing else in the world exists. Lily felt a lump forming in her throat. It used to feel that way all the time. What happened? Diane asked gently. If you don't mind me asking. Maybe it was the kindness in her voice. Or maybe Lily was just tired of carrying the weight of her failure alone. But she found herself answering. I choked, she said simply. Semi-finals of the Keller competition. I'd made it through 3 rounds, playing better than I ever had before. The finals were within reach, just one more perfect performance away. Lily closed her eyes, the memory still vivid. I walked on stage, sat at the piano, and nothing. My hands were shaking so badly I couldn't play a single note. Stage fright happens to everyone, Diane said. Lily shook her head. Not like this. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't move. They had to help me off the stage. Her voice dropped to a whisper. 2,000 people watched me fall apart. The video went viral in music circles. Prodigy's meltdown. That's what they called it. That sounds awful, Diane said quietly. But it was one bad day. It wasn't just one day, Lily explained. It had been building for months. Panic attacks before performances, insomnia. I'd been pushing through it, telling myself it would pass. But after that public disaster, she trailed off, then added, I couldn't face anyone. Not my teachers, not my friends, especially not my parents who'd sacrificed everything for my training. So you ran. I ran, Lily confirmed. Changed my hair color, took a bus across the country, and became someone else. Someone who didn't play piano. Before Diane could respond, the door opened again. This time it was Jack Chen who stepped into the alley. There you are, he said, spotting them. Whitaker's about to have a heart attack. Apparently half his customers are asking if you'll play another piece. Diane gave him a look. We're having a private conversation, Jack. Chen raised an eyebrow. In an alley? Classy. Despite his sarcastic tone, he seemed more subdued than earlier. To Lily, he said, Your professor friend is quite the talker. He's been regaling us with stories of your competition wins. Lily winced. Great. Chen studied her for a moment, then surprised her by saying, I owe you a real apology. I didn't understand what I was asking of you. No, you didn't, Lily agreed. In my defense, I had no idea about your history. I just thought you were being modest or stubborn. And that gave you the right to ambush me? Lily's anger, temporarily forgotten during her conversation with Diane, flared back to life. Do you have any idea what it took for me to walk away from music? To rebuild my life from scratch? And you just bulldozed through it all because you were curious. Chen had the grace to look uncomfortable. When you put it that way, it does sound rather awful. It was awful, Lily confirmed. An awkward silence fell. Diane put out her cigarette against the brick wall. If it helps, Chen offered finally. You were magnificent in there. Not a hint of the panic you described. Lily had been thinking about that too. She'd played in front of a restaurant full of people, something that should have terrified her. And yet the paralyzing fear hadn't come. She'd felt nervous, yes, but not the overwhelming panic that had haunted her for so long. It was different, she admitted. No judges, no critics, no expectations, just playing. Perhaps that's the key, Diane suggested. Changing the context. Before Lily could respond, the door opened a third time, and Professor Novak peered out. Ah, there you are, he said, his eyes lighting up when he saw Lily. Mr. Whitaker was concerned. I'm fine, Lily assured him. Just needed some air. Novak nodded, then said hesitantly, Would you come back inside? There's someone I'd like you to meet. Lily frowned. Who? Thomas Reynolds. He's the music director at the Children's Hospital downtown. He happened to be dining with his wife tonight and heard you play. He's very interested in speaking with you. Lily looked confused. About what? Their music therapy program, Novak explained. They work with sick children using music as a healing tool. It's quite remarkable, actually. Chen snapped his fingers. Music therapy, of course. Perfect solution. Lily shot him an irritated look. Solution to what? Your dilemma, Chen said as if it were obvious. You have extraordinary talent but can't handle the pressure of traditional performance venues. A setting where the focus is on the therapeutic benefits rather than technical perfection could be ideal. I don't recall asking for career advice, Lily said coldly. Chen shrugged. Consider it compensation for my interference. After all, if I hadn't pushed you to play tonight, this opportunity wouldn't have presented itself. Lily wanted to argue, but there was an uncomfortable logic to his statement. Still, the thought of stepping back into the world of music, even in this different context, made her stomach twist with anxiety. I don't know the first thing about music therapy, she said. You wouldn't need to. Not to start, Novak replied eagerly. They have trained therapists who handle the clinical aspects. They need skilled musicians who can connect with the children, adapt to their needs. Diane touched Lily's arm gently. Just talk to him. You don't have to decide anything tonight. Lily looked at the three of them, Chen with his calculating expression, Diane with her maternal concern, Novak with his hopeful enthusiasm. They were practically strangers, and yet here they were, invested in her future in a way no one had been for years. Fine, she said finally. I'll talk to him. But no promises. They returned to the restaurant where the evening crowd had thinned considerably. A few tables of lingering diners looked up hopefully as Lily entered, but she avoided eye contact, focusing instead on the man standing near the piano. Thomas Reynolds was a gentle-looking man in his 50s with kind eyes and a patient smile. As Novak made the introductions, Lily could sense none of the judgment or pity she'd feared. Instead, Reynolds spoke to her with respect, explaining the hospital's program and how they used music to help children cope with pain, anxiety, and the isolation of long-term illness. We don't just need musicians, he explained. We need people who understand what it means to struggle, to overcome challenges. People who can connect with these kids on their level. As he spoke, Lily found herself reluctantly intrigued. This wasn't about performance or competition. It was about using music to help others, something she'd never really considered before. Would I have to perform? She asked hesitantly. Reynolds smiled. You'd play certainly, but it's entirely different from a concert hall. Sometimes it's just you and one child in a hospital room, sometimes small groups in the common areas. The focus is never on you, it's on them, on how the music makes them feel, how it helps them express emotions they can't put into words. Something about this idea resonated with Lily in a way she hadn't expected. She thought about her own journey, how music had been her voice when words failed, her comfort in difficult times. Before the pressure and expectations had twisted it into something anxiety-inducing, music had been her healing place. Could I think about it? She asked. Of course, Reynolds said, handing her a business card. Take all the time you need. We have volunteer positions if you'd like to try it out before making any commitments. As Reynolds and Novak moved away to chat with Mr. Whitaker, Lily found herself alone again with Chen and Diane. Well, Chen prompted. What do you think? Lily turned the business card over in her hands. I think you're still annoying for putting me in this position. A smile tugged at the corner of Chen's mouth. But, Lily admitted reluctantly, I might be a little grateful too. For the first time since she'd run away from Westridge, Lily felt a small spark of possibility. Not a return to her old dreams. Those still seemed impossibly out of reach. But perhaps a new path. One that honored her gift without crushing her under its weight. As if reading her thoughts, Diane said quietly, Sometimes the most beautiful music comes from the broken places. Lily looked up at the woman, surprised by the insight. Then she glanced toward the piano, still sitting in its spotlight across the room. I guess we'll see, she said softly. 6 months later, Lily sat in the small office of the music therapy department at Hope Children's Hospital, tuning a guitar. Sunlight streamed through the windows, catching the copper highlights in her hair, which had grown out to its natural brown. Photos of smiling children lined the walls, many featuring Lily beside them at various instruments. The piano, guitar, even a small drum set. A knock on the door pulled her attention away from the guitar. Come in, she called. Reynolds poked his head in, smiling. Ready for the big day? Our audience is already gathering in the garden. Lily took a deep breath. As ready as I'll ever be, I guess. You'll be wonderful, Reynolds assured her. The kids are so excited. Mia's been telling everyone that her piano teacher is giving a concert just for them. A small smile tugged at Lily's lips at the mention of Mia, a 7-year-old leukemia patient who had become one of her favorite students. It's hardly a concert, just a little outdoor performance for the kids. Call it whatever makes you comfortable, Reynolds said with a knowing look. The fact remains, you're playing for an audience. Your first public performance in 3.5 years, Lily finished. Hard to believe. So much had changed since that night at the Ivory Room. After speaking with Reynolds, Lily had taken a week to consider his offer, finally agreeing to volunteer 2 afternoons a week at the hospital's music therapy program. Those 2 afternoons quickly became 3, then 4, as she discovered a passion for working with the children that surprised her. seeing their faces light up when she played, watching their small hands learn to coax melodies from instruments, hearing their laughter during the silly songs she created to distract them from treatments. It had begun to heal something inside, her that she hadn't realized was still broken. 3 months into her volunteer work, Reynolds had offered her a part-time position. A month after that, she'd cut back her hours at the Ivory Room to focus more on music therapy. And now somehow she had agreed to perform at the hospital's spring garden party, a casual event for patients, families, and staff, but still a performance. Nervous? Reynolds asked gently. Lily considered the question. Yes, she admitted, but not like before. It's different when I know I'm playing for them, not for myself. Reynolds nodded, understanding. Well, whenever you're ready, we'll be waiting. No rush. After he left, Lily set the guitar aside and stood, smoothing down the simple sundress she'd chosen for today. Her uniform of black pants and white shirt from the Ivory Room hung in her closet, still used twice a week for her evening shifts. Mr. Whitaker had been surprisingly supportive of her career shift, even adjusting her schedule to accommodate her new passion. As she gathered her sheet music, Lily's phone buzzed with a text message. Break a leg today, piano girl. Not literally, of course. That would be counterproductive. JC. Lily rolled her eyes but couldn't suppress a small smile. Jack Chen had become an unlikely presence in her life since that fateful night. After his initial interference had led to this unexpected new chapter, he'd taken a peculiar interest in her progress. First, it was occasional visits to the Ivory Room, then surprisingly generous donations to the hospital's music therapy program, and finally, a standing invitation to play at fundraising events for his foundation, which she had thus far declined. Thanks, she texted back. Shouldn't you be disrupting some industry or building a rocket ship to Mars? His reply came quickly. Already did that this morning. Besides, Diane would kill me if I missed getting an update on your big performance today. She's oddly invested in your success. Lily's smile widened. Diane had proven to be a more genuine friend than Chen, occasionally meeting Lily for coffee and bringing her daughter for informal piano lessons. The girl was talented and reminded Lily of herself at that age, before the pressure had become too much. Taking a final deep breath, Lily gathered her courage and headed toward the hospital garden, where a small stage had been set up under the shade of oak trees. As she approached, she could see patients and their families settled on blankets and chairs on the lawn. Hospital staff moved among them, helping children get comfortable, adjusting IV poles, handing out cups of lemonade. In the front row, Lily spotted Mia, her small body dwarfed by the wheelchair, but her face alight with excitement. Beside her sat her mother, who waved when she spotted Lily. On Mia's other side, somewhat incongruously dressed in an expensive suit despite the casual atmosphere, sat Jack Chen, deep in conversation with the child. Lily paused, surprised. She hadn't expected him to actually come. As if sensing her gaze, Chen looked up and gave a small nod of acknowledgement. As Lily made her way to the small stage, several other familiar faces came into view. Professor Novak sat near the back, his expression proud. Ray and Tina from the Ivory Room had come along with Mr. Whitaker. And there was Diane, standing off to the side with her daughter. Reynolds stepped up to the microphone as Lily took her place at the piano that had been moved outdoors for the occasion. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our spring garden party, he announced cheerfully. We have a very special treat for you today. Many of you know Miss Porter from our music therapy program, but what you might not know is that she is an extraordinarily talented pianist. Today, she's graciously agreed to share some of that talent with us. A round of applause followed, particularly enthusiastic from the children who had worked with Lily. She felt her heart rate increase but was surprised to find it wasn't the paralyzing fear she'd once known. Just normal performance jitters, manageable and even a little exciting. Reynolds handed her the microphone, and Lily looked out at the expectant faces. Hi everyone, she began simply. I've put together some music that I hope you'll enjoy. I'm starting with a piece that one of my young students specifically requested. Lily's eyes found Mia, who beamed back at her. This is Debussy's Clair de Lune, which Mia tells me sounds like moonlight dancing on water. As Lily began to play, the garden fell silent except for the occasional bird call and rustle of leaves in the gentle breeze. The music floated over the gathering, delicate and dreamlike. Lily kept her eyes on the keys at first, But as the familiar piece progressed, she found herself glancing up, making eye contact with the children whose faces shone with wonder. There was no judgment here, no critics mentally scoring her technique, no competition judges waiting to catch every mistake. Just people, many of them children fighting their own daily battles, finding a moment of beauty amid difficulty. Lily moved from Debussy to a medley of film music that had the children grinning with recognition, then to an original composition she'd written specifically for today. As she played, she felt something shift inside her, a final letting go of the past, of the expectations she'd placed on herself, of the narrow definition of success that had once driven her. For the final piece, Lily moved to the microphone again. I'd like to invite some of my students to join me for this last song. We've been working on it together in our sessions. 6 children made their way to the stage with help from nurses and parents, Mia among them, carefully lifted from her wheelchair by her mother. Each child took a small percussion instrument, a tambourine, maracas, small drums. Lily seated herself at the piano again and began a simple, joyful melody that the children accompanied with their instruments, their faces serious with concentration at first, then breaking into smiles as they found the rhythm. The audience clapped along, some even singing with the familiar tune. What the performance lacked in technical perfection, it more than made up for in heart. When the music finally ended, the garden erupted in applause. The children on stage beamed with pride. Mia threw her skinny arms around Lily's neck in a fierce hug. "We did it," she whispered excitedly in Lily's ear. "Yes, we did," Lily agreed, finding her eyes unexpectedly damp. As the children returned to their families, Lily stood to acknowledge the applause. She caught Chen's eye in the audience. He was clapping with uncharacteristic enthusiasm, a genuine smile on his usually calculating face. Beside him, Mia settled back into her wheelchair, still glowing from the performance. Later, as hospital staff began clearing away chairs and the families gradually dispersed, Lily found herself surrounded by well-wishers, parents thanking her for bringing music into their children's difficult journeys, colleagues congratulating her on the performance, her friends from the ivory room teasing her about her secret double life. Chen approached last, hanging back until the others had moved away. "Not too shabby," he said in his typically understated way, different from Rachmaninoff at the ivory room, but impressive in its own right. Lily raised an eyebrow. Was that an actual compliment? Don't get used to it. He glanced around at the hospital garden, at the children still lingering on blankets in the grass. "So this is where you've been hiding your talent. Playing lullabies and Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star." "Among other things," Lily agreed, refusing to rise to his bait. "It suits me." Chen studied her for a moment, his expression unusually serious. "You know, when I first saw you at that restaurant, I thought you were wasting your potential. I assumed talent like yours belonged on stage at Carnegie Hall, nowhere else." "And now?" Lily prompted when he paused. "Now I think I may have been wrong. Not about your talent, that's undeniable, but about where it belongs." He nodded toward Mia, who was showing her mother a drawing she'd made. "That kid over there? She lights up like a Christmas tree when you play. I visited a few times, seen your sessions with her." Lily looked surprised. "You have?" Chen shrugged. "I make large donations. They let me observe occasionally." He paused again. "My point is, maybe this is exactly where your music belongs. Not locked away because it doesn't fit some narrow definition of success, and not forced into the competitive circuit that broke you before, but here, doing something that matters." Lily was speechless for a moment, touched by his unexpected insight. "Thank you," she said finally, "for seeing that, and, I suppose, for that night at the ivory room too. As infuriating as it was at the time." Chen grinned. "I was right, though. You just needed the right audience." As he walked away, Reynolds approached with a small envelope in hand. "Successful day," he commented, watching the last families make their way back into the hospital. "The children loved it. And you were wonderful." Lily smiled, feeling a contentment that had once seemed impossible. "It felt good," she admitted. "Really good." Reynolds handed her the envelope. "A thank you card from Mia. She insisted I give it to you now." Inside was a crayon drawing of a woman with brown hair sitting at a piano. Above it, in a child's careful handwriting, were the words, "Miss Lily makes music that helps me feel brave." Lily's vision blurred with tears as she looked from the card to Reynolds. "I never thought I'd find my way back to music." she said softly. I thought that part of my life was over. Reynolds smiled gently. Sometimes we don't find our way back. Sometimes we find our way forward instead, to something even better. As the sun began to set over the hospital garden, Lily tucked the card carefully into her bag. In the distance, she could hear Mia's laughter as her mother wheeled her back toward the hospital entrance. Tomorrow they would have another music therapy session. Tomorrow Lily would play again, not for judges or critics or professors, not for applause or accolades or awards, but for a child who needed music to feel brave. And somehow, against all odds, that had become enough.